former Chicago mayor and former U.S. ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, spoke at Tel Aviv University today. The potential Democratic presidential candidate delivered a tough love message to Israel.
Unconditional support has produced a prime minister who has presumed that his strategic interests would incur no political costs if he ignored America's concerns about settlements and sparked a regional war. Unconditional support has allowed you to deny food and medical relief to innocent Palestinians.
CBS News political reporter Zach Hudak joins me now. So, Zach, according to a new poll from the AP, about 1/3 of U.S. adults, including roughly half of Democrats, believe that Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians during the war in Gaza, which Israel and the U.S. government vehemently deny. A similar share, 30% of Jewish adults agree, although half say it has not. How has sentiment changed toward our allies since the war in Gaza?
Lindsay, we've seen in polling like that Americans, particularly young Americans, have become much more critical of Israel and specifically Israel's military operations in Gaza. If you look to elected officials, I think what's more noteworthy is how the more moderate members who historically Israel could always rely on for support, they have become themselves much more critical. It's not a surprise to see far left progressives be critical of Israel. They frankly always have. When we see someone like Chuck Schumer, he said near the start of this conflict that it seemed like Bibi Netanyahu had, quote, lost his way. Or when we see Alyssa Slotkin, a very moderate member with national security background, and we see her be very critical of Israel's actions, even as it remains a critical ally to us, you know that there is change afoot in the Democratic Party. These are things that would have been unspeakable or unthinkable a decade ago. We saw earlier this year a majority of Democrats in the Senate actually vote to limit the sorts of military aid that we are able to sell to Israel. I think that's something that before this conflict never would have happened. So there's been change both with the voters, but that's been reflected by the folks who represent them. Even those moderates who have traditionally always supported Israel are publicly questioning Israel's actions.
We mentioned he is a potential 2028 contender. Is this a topic we're going to hear more and more about in the lead up to the next presidential election? And is the sentiment split among Republicans and Democrats or within the parties too?
I think there's no question we'll be hearing a lot about it in that lead up, Lindsay, particularly in those primary races, particularly for Democrats. We've seen that for Democrats, there's really a split on this issue. You have a lot of young progressive voters who are extremely critical of Israel, and some were very even supportive of Palestinians. On the flip side, you have older Democrats who tend to be a bit more moderate, who are still very unwavering in their support of Israel as a key ally to the U.S. If you look at the GOP, it's a little bit of a different issue. It's not quite as clear of a split because the language is a bit different. It's less, do we support what Israel is doing in Gaza, and more, do we support interventionalism? There's a wing of the GOP that is very America first. They do not want to get involved in conflicts happening in the Middle East. So I think when you look at the Democratic primaries playing out and the Republican primaries playing out as we get closer to that presidential election, it's going to be different language that the two parties use. But in a lot of ways, it's really the same debate. It's just a question of how they talk about it.
Zach Hudak, thank you.